Nutrition Hero Podcast. Igniting both the art and the science of functional medicine. Here's your host, Dr. Brad Watts.
Hello, what do you know, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Nutrition Hero Podcast. I'm Dr. Brad Watts, and coming at you today from the podcast lab once again. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your participation. If you are a new listener, make sure to hit subscribe on iTunes. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast or Stitcher, however you're getting your media here. If you are a YouTube listener, make sure that you hit subscribe and thumbs up. Give us that thumbs up, 5 stars on the podcast apps. It helps us reach more people and helps us get this message of health and healing out to more providers that are looking to expand their ability to serve their community. And that's what it's all about, is it not? All right. Well, today I have a guest for you. Her name is Dr. Heather Credeur. Dr. Credeur is one of the best functional medicine providers I have found in the country, somebody that's able to take complicated information, distill it down to the actionable points, present it to patients, and help these people stinking move forward in the right direction. One of the things I appreciate about Dr. Credeur is her ability to constantly search out new and different information, new and different cutting-edge applications. And today is no different. We're going to be talking about something called biotoxin illness. Dr. Credeur has been one of the first functional medicine providers on the scene when it comes to biotoxin illness, and the results of applying the knowledge that she's going to be sharing with you today are astounding. Astounding. She's been able to help hundreds and hundreds of patients over the last 12 months move in the right direction and unchain themselves from health conditions associated with biotoxin illness, and it's stunning. So without any further ado, please welcome Dr. Heather Credeur.
Dr. Heather Credeur, welcome to the Nutrition Hero Podcast. Thank you for being a guest here again. Second time guest, by the way. Second time.
Thank you, Brad, for having me. I always love being on your show.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you. I'm ready for an information dump. I'm looking for some information today, very specific information. I wanted to have a conversation with you about biotoxin illness. What in the world is it? Why are we reading about all of this stuff all of a sudden? What's going on? So let's start with something a little bit lighter before that. What have you been up to?
Oh, well, I've been in my practice and really working on patients and developing and figuring out this whole biotoxin niche that you talk about. And so I've been hard at work really trying to figure out how to put that in practice, how to make it work with the patient, how do they get amazing results, and then how do I make it work on the business side of things in a practice. So that's what I've really been up to over the last probably year or so.
A whole year, all right. So the thing that's interesting to me, and I read different publications, functional medicine, traditional medicine, everybody's talking about it right now. So can we define biotoxin? What is it? Like, what's going on?
Well, we can start with like people want to know or people don't know. And I didn't know when I first started, like, what is a biotoxin? A biotoxin is a toxin that comes from a living organism. And there's a whole list of many different biotoxins, but the most prominent ones that we're dealing with today in our patient population are toxins from mold, toxins from Lyme. You can also, I have seen some crazy things, like I've seen biotoxins coming from a rattlesnake bite. I've seen patients that have had a recluse spider bite. I've had all kinds of crazy stuff since you start digging into this.
What in the world? Spider bites?
It's so crazy. I'll tell you that story maybe later as it's what we're doing. But so a biotoxin is a toxin that comes from a living organism. And, you know, what we have found that's really coming into the research is patients or people, there's a certain percentage of the population where they can't get rid of these biotoxins, and it just keeps circulating and circulating in the body, and the body can't get rid of it. So it creates all this inflammation I have this weird analogy that I tell patients, and it may make sense or it may not, and it's really oversimplified, but this is how I talk to patients about it. You have two different sides of the immune system, and you have your innate side, which is the simple side, right? And when you get these toxins coming in, the immune system says there's something in here that's not supposed to be in here. We're going to call in the fire trucks, and the fire trucks squirt out the water, which is like inflammation, and they're trying to put out this fire, right? But you have this certain white blood cell that's an antigen presenting cell, and it goes and it takes a little piece of the toxin and it tries to show it or present it to the long-term immunity or the acquired immune system. And there is a problem with handing off that antigen. So the immune system cannot make antibodies, which the antibodies are very specific and much stronger at killing off these or getting rid of these toxins than the innate immune system. But because that handoff never happens, you have these fire trucks. What is supposed to happen is once the antigen and the antibody is made from the antigen, it goes and kills off the toxins, and then it calms all that inflammation cascade down. It tells the fire trucks the fire's out and you can go home and stop squirting out water. But that doesn't happen, and the body just keeps recirculating and circulating these toxins, creating all of this inflammation. And as it's creating this inflammation and it continues to go in this cycle, you start to create autoimmune issues, you can create diabetes, there's like a whole host of all of these issues that start to happen. And the cool thing is what I'm finding is that as I'm looking for these biotoxins and screening all of the patients that we see in our practice, it's really a huge percent of the patient population. And I think back to I've been practicing functional medicine for, 18 years now, which is crazy. But I think back to the patients that we got better, but they didn't get fully better, or maybe we got their blood sugar in good control, but we didn't help them reverse their diabetes. Those patients that got results, but not fully. I really think that the reason we didn't fully help them is because we didn't get down to the true root of the issue. And so this probably was playing a big role there.
That's amazing. So in the story that you're telling, the two different sides of the immune system, like the tag never happens. Mm-hmm. And is that a genetic thing? Is that like a predisposition these people have, or what's going on there where the immune system doesn't get recruited?
Well, I think there's two trains of thought in our functional medicine community out there, but the way that I have been trained and what I'm using in clinical practice, it is where we test genetic component, we test the HLA-DRDQ gene, and that will tell us if the patient has a predisposition to not be able to clear out these toxins. This gene is related to other things in the body, and it doesn't give them a life sentence if they get the dreaded
right.
gene. However, it gives a good guideline or an explanation to the patient that yes, in fact, they do have a difficult time getting rid of these biotoxins, and it just confirms for me that I'm on the right track and helping this person get rid of these biotoxins.
Gotcha. So the cool part, I think, with this is that you're addressing something that's been there a very long time that nobody else is finding. And you live in a high altitude desert, dry area. What does that mean for the rest of the country? What in the world? If you're talking like mold, spores, you live in a dry area. Is this endemic to a region, or is this it doesn't matter if you're living in Arizona desert?
So, from the research that I have done and the things that I have read, they estimate that at least 50% of the buildings in the United States, including homes and residences, all buildings have mold. So you may have an area like where I live in Denver that is a drier climate. It doesn't have a lot of humidity. And 70% of my population about has this biotoxin issue.
Wow.
And so it doesn't mean that mold can't grow in these environments. And you can imagine if we have it in Denver, how prevalent it must be in all of the South and the areas that are really high in humidity. I mean, it's really crazy. And I have patients, many of them, they leave. So they live here half of the time and then they go down to Florida or Arizona for the other half of the time. So they have houses in areas that are moldy. So, and plus you're getting it in anywhere that you have water damage. I think regardless of the climate that we live in.
I think so. The water damage piece to that puzzle, the water damage buildings is something that you mentioned. Is there a situation where water in the environment, let's say it doesn't damage the building, let's say it's just laying in the yard, open water, is that also something that can drive this style of a problem in somebody?
Yeah, it really can. I mean, if it's in the environment, if it's constantly in the air, I mean, think about like drywall is pretty, like drywall is soft and it is susceptible to the environment. So if you're in the South and you have really high humidity, you don't have to have like a flood, or you don't have to have like a water pipe leak or something like that.
Yeah.
It just can breed itself into the drywall because of the air. But in Colorado, really, we don't see that often. I mean, we have swamp coolers in some of the basements here, and I have a patient who I talked to yesterday. She said that the mold remediation people came out and they had to redo her bathroom because the drywall was just wet. It was damp. So that had to all be taken out and handled.
Goodness. It's like the situation that arises every time there's new or different research. It's stunning to see what happens. Like you look at the mold situation, you go, if we didn't know this, good God, what else do we not know? It's amazing.
I know, it seems like, the more we know, the more we don't know. And it's
exactly.
Like, the more we keep figuring out about how smart and intelligent the body is, it's just crazy. Like, especially when you're dealing with diabetes and when you start understanding even the mechanism of biotoxins. And just a quick thing that I just think is so fascinating. When we have these biotoxin issues, it damages the mitochondria. And the mitochondria need glucose or glycogen to make ATP. And if the mitochondria are damaged and they can't use the glucose or the glycogen to make ATP, the glycogen starts building up in the cell and it starts causing insulin resistance. So you have to get rid of the biotoxin and you have to start repairing the mitochondria to actually reverse insulin resistance. So we don't necessarily have to shove all of these, blood sugar stabilizing supplements into somebody if you actually address the root cause and know that the body is really smart and it's becoming insulin resistant as a protective mechanism. And I'm just like so blown away when I'm dealing with these diabetic patients. Like used to, we would do a cleanse and do all of these supplements to reverse the insulin resistance and all of that stuff, work with adrenals, liver, blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows that, or a lot of people do anyway. But now I start working with all of the detoxification pathways first, and then we start getting rid of the biotoxins, and the blood sugar is coming down without even giving them any kind of blood sugar stabilizing supplements. That's almost like at the very end, kind of a fine tuning for a diabetic now versus like forcing the body to push sugar into the cells.
That's right. Like when you fight against innate intelligence again, and you're going to lose. Every time you do it, you're going to lose. It's amazing to see. So you're working through this model right now with your patients in practice. What kind of application, or what was the process like for you to take what you were reading, try it out on yourself, I would imagine first, and then implement it with your patient base? What was that process like, actually bringing it to market?
Well, that's why I've been working on it for a whole year, because there is a process that happens when you read the research and you read that some people are handling biotoxins, but they're not doing it on a larger scale. And for me, it's really important to make the biggest impact that I can and help as many patients as possible. So I do have a weird ability to take all of that stuff in the research and put it into practice, but it does take refining. So yes, I did it on myself, on my family, on my kids, on anybody that would listen to me about how we can work with these biotoxins, and then on doctors that I consult. So we started it on the people that I knew and really tried to understand how the body reacts to these different supplements. You know, you have a lot of different people and their theories about how to work through these biotoxins, but what I find is a lot of the people that are researching this stuff, they have very, very small practices and they may work on just a handful of patients, but I needed to really understand how we can streamline this and get it into mainstream. So yes, I went through the protocol. My youngest son had some learning issues and he tried to get into a new school, and they were like, Heather, he is trying to move over to 6th grade and he's at a 3rd grade level. And I'm like, what? My kid? I don't know about that. But anyway, so what was interesting is we did a bunch of cognitive training. I got him into the other school. And as soon as he moved into the other school, I noticed that he was sick a lot. Like anytime anybody got a sniffle, he had it. He had stomach aches, he had major food sensitivities, but once we moved schools, then all of that stopped. And this was about the time that I was learning. I was really into the cognitive stuff and learning about biotoxins. I'm like, oh my God, I think the school that he was at, because it was an old school, had mold in it. And so when I moved him over and those symptoms stopped, I'm like, holy cow, I think he has a biotoxin stuff. So that's when we started like testing everybody, looking at our genetics. And then, you know, I put him through the biotoxin protocol. He gained 27 pounds in.
Well, side note, did he need to gain 27 pounds?
I was about to say,
Okay.
if you have seen my youngest son, he is like a beanpole. So he was looking a little malabsorbed because, you know, I don't let him eat junk food. So he was really thin. And so he definitely needed to gain weight, and he grew like 3 or 4 inches. So he's taller than me now. So it was just like amazing. So when I saw that personal story and how I felt, and my husband and my other child, I was like, this is just crazy. We really have to help people with this. And, you know, so I just started off slow and tried to figure out how I could help, and what would be the easiest way to streamline the protocol so that people could actually do it.
I think that's important because, as you mentioned, the people that are researching this stuff usually have small practice. And I'll even go a step further and say they're usually not seeing patients.
Yeah.
They're following biochemistry pathways and saying, I think this will happen. And so it's one thing to observe that, but it's another thing to actually observe it happening in people and changing lives. The impact that you get to see with that, it's stunning. Like, it gives me goosebumps just talking about it. But the cool part, I think, is that you have a steady stream of patients to work on. Like, this is not this one thing happened this one time. It's a repeatable process that you've been refining, as you said, for a whole year. And I think there's something to that. I think that, like, that's nothing to shake a stick at, right? And meaning like, there's momentum that can be built there. So good on you guys for doing that.
Thank you. And you know what really drives that is the results that you see from one patient to the next patient. And it is just astonishing to me. So when I see that over and over again, then it just drives that, man, we really have to help more and more people with this.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's interesting because the process that I have to screen people and move people down this biotoxin pathway, if it's appropriate, there's been like a handful of people that it didn't seem like they needed that, and they were having issues getting results. So I just stuck them on a biotoxin protocol and their blood sugars came down. It was pretty crazy.
So the prospects for this are pretty interesting. You've been working with patients that have diabetes, thyroid disease, autoimmune conditions. What are some of the other applications that you see in the future? Like little kids, like your son, learning disabilities, ADD, ADHD? What do you think?
Definitely, I see all autoimmune diseases really should be screened for this because I think it plays such a huge role. I definitely think kiddos with this, it causes learning disabilities, it causes major food sensitivities, it causes like a higher susceptibility to infections, right? Because you'll have some hidden infections, that you have to handle. And so it's just this constant infection, and it's a depleted immune system, right? So lots of different learning disabilities. We know that you have to address this when you're dealing with Alzheimer's, cognitive decline, dementia. Diabetes is just huge with this. And the list can go on and on. I think fibromyalgia is a really big part of this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fibromyalgia, they have some other issues, emotionally that I find with almost every single patient. But I have a patient actually right now. She has hypothyroid, fibromyalgia. Her list is like this long of that she's dealing with. And I am just so shocked because she wasn't sleeping at all. And I think she's been in the program for like 4 weeks and she's sleeping better. And, she couldn't even be touched. And I always hug my patients, and I forgot that she was in so much pain. And I gave her a hug to bring her back. She's like, oh my God, you're hurting me. And now I did it the other day. She's like, no, you can give me a hug now because the pain's going away. So, I think it's, any major chronic degenerative disease, we should really look at this issue.
The cool part, chiropractor, and the cool part of seeing somebody work with chronic disease from a chiropractic perspective, it's like you're unchaining that innate intelligence. It's like you're letting it out of the basement, so to speak, so they can have some vibrancy once again, like have an expression of life, even for like 10 minutes. It's cool.
It's crazy. I don't know. I love my patients. So I just get so, crazy about too many patient stories, but you can tell me to stop.
You're good.
But I have this patient and she's been diagnosed with Parkinsonisms. And it's like she has Parkinson's, like every sign of Parkinson's, but like severe. But it's not really Parkinson's because when she gets on those medications, then nothing happens. So her husband has taken her all over the whole United States, all these different neurologists, and they really don't give her any hope. But I did an MRI with a neuroquant, and it came back that she likely had Lyme's disease just from the regular part of the MRI report. And then I did the mycotox test, and then I did a Lyme test, and they were all positive. And it's crazy. She's not verbal. She can't talk. She falls over all the time and she drools. She is just like, has no quality of life. And I saw them 2 weeks ago and she did a yoga class for the first time, like ever. And I'm like, are you serious? Did you hold down dog? And they were like, yes, she did down dog without falling over. And
oh my goodness.
She's in month 2 of the actual Biotoxin protocol that I have her on. So she's making like really great changes. It's just crazy.
I love it. I love it. Like, I love it when a plan comes together, and I love it when you can see people that are living below the standard that I think everybody deserves. When you can see them stick their head back up and start to make some progress. It's so phenomenal. I love it.
It so is. I mean, it just makes it, like, this is what I always thought being a doctor would be.
Yeah, exactly.
Is like really changing people's lives and really giving them the ability to live that life that they always thought that they could. And it's just like so rewarding.
That's so cool. So where's this going for you? Where can we get more information on this style of thing? Where can we find you?
Well, you can find me. I do work and help to teach doctors how to put things like this into their practice. So it's really important to understand that you have to have the right communication from the beginning to the end. You have to have the right way to package and put this all together so that a patient understands why they're doing something, what they're doing, how long it's going to take, like really creating all of those expectations. And you also, as a doctor, have to know how to put this together so that you can make your business run well and run smoothly. Because if you don't have a thriving practice, then your impact on the patients are going to be much, much less. So you can find me at the fmshift.com. That's the website for clinicians if you want to learn more about how we run a practice and put these niches together and how we help patients. The most recent thing that's coming up is I'm going to be on a new summit, the FM Sales Training Virtual Summit, and that's going to be in February. And you can go get more information about that. You can go to the fmshift.com/summit. Now, I'm not
Awesome.
going to be hosting it, but I'll be interviewed on it. And we're going to have a lot of people, the top FM practitioners or people that are influenced in the FM realm, to see, what it is that they're doing to make the biggest impact on the world.
That's awesome. You can't impact your community if the lights are off. So that's a big step. All right. Any like parting words of wisdom that you have for Nutrition Hero family today?
Well, I think the most important thing that I could give you is to keep learning and to keep growing and to keep on the cutting edge of not only clinicals, because clinicals is really important, but keeping on the cutting edge of how to implement this into your practice and help more people. Because I truly think, we have a lot of people that know a lot of stuff, but if you're not applying it and putting it into practice, then the people that are suffering are still suffering, and you're not really making as huge of an impact as I think that we all want to.
Absolutely. Doctor, thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you, Brad. I really